Secular offense anti-Islamic separatism bill passes French lower house. Gerard Darmanin, France's interior minister, commented that the proposed anti-separatism bill is tough but necessary. The bill comes after a series of religious violence and lethal attacks. The bill's provisions empower the state to increase regulations on religious schools, ban extremist preachers, and even close places of worship that are suspected of hosting extremism. French President Emmanuel Macron calls the threat of Islamic separatism a, quote, growing counter-society that denounces equality, the values of the French Republic, and secularism. On the other hand, critics are enraged over the bill's provisions that may infringe on religious rights. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, presider of the National Assembly's La France Insoumise, calls the bill anti-Muslim. Macron's La République En Marche party initiated the bill's passing in the National Assembly and its affiliate parties on the other aisle. So I wanted to cover this news because we have been talking a lot, over the past few months about this initiative in France about these anti-Islamic separatism laws or this bill. And so it passed the lower house of parliament, which makes it one step closer to being ratified into law. And it has to go to the upper house, which will happen, I believe, in a few months. So there's a strong possibility that this will actually go through. I believe the upper house has some ability to make adjustments to the bill. They can rewrite portions of it. But I wanted to give an update on this story because there are a lot of people who have a lot of concerns about this. A lot of aspects of this bill basically increases state control. And a lot of people have serious concerns about this. One aspect of this bill basically allows aspects of the government to shut down religious organizations, I believe, without a court order. People have a lot of concerns. And it's also an interesting point to think about to the extent to which this bill is anti-Muslim or targets one faith or another, because the language of the bill is completely neutral. It doesn't talk about Islam, but this came about in reaction to this growing problem that France has in integrating its Muslim population into its society and imbuing the values that have made their country what it is into their immigrant population. And people also have contentions about if it's anti-Muslim or specifically targeting Islam or not, because I think in modern French society, it is more of the Muslim population that has a more outward expression of their faith. So just de facto, it will affect them more. I have more that I can say about this, but I'll pass this to Armin.
Well, I'm glad that it's good. It's a good thing that the bill doesn't target any religions over others specifically. So that is a good thing. Let's be honest with that. I really don't like the part that they don't have to have a court order to just close the mosque. Like you would think that you want to make sure that there's some checks and balances for such a thing. I mean, this is like authoritarian level, government oversight. To just like, I don't even need to check with the judge if this is legal or not. I could just walk in and close the mosque. Is that actually what's happening? Because that sounds like horrible.
Well, okay, to be clear, that was a piece that I learned from an analyst that I was watching on France 24.
Oh, okay, so we don't know if it's accurate.
So yeah, so that's just what I've heard. There's obviously a huge language barrier, so sometimes it's hard for me to pick apart exactly what is accurate here. But in general, like even like let's just put that specific claim to the side. In general, it does increase the authority of government because there are much harsher restrictions on homeschooling. It's kind of reinvigorating the government's position on anyone who works in any public capacity. It could even be a bus driver, not having any sort of outward expression of faith displayed. So that's, you know, kind
a
of
bus driver. Yeah, that's a bit extreme, isn't it?
It's like public employees, period.
Oh wait, is that government employee?
Yeah, like like
bus.
where I live, the bus drivers are public employees.
Yeah, okay. Oh yeah. But I thought like the government employees that were supposed to wear religious stuff were people in a position of authority, like to you know, like a policeman, not the postman. You know what I mean? Because like that's comes across as like a position of authority. Like a teacher or a policeman, it could be justified that you can't, if you want that job, you can't be portraying any form of religious symbols. Because if I'm an ex-Muslim and I'm being arrested by a Muslim cop, you know what I mean? That was like, okay, what is this like? I don't know what's gonna happen. Or like any religious could be like being broadcasted from a position of authority, like a cop is biased from the government, right? But I don't know, if you're an accountant working for the government, you obviously should be able to display any form of political or religious leanings because you're just in a goddamn death, like you're just like filling out spreadsheets and stuff. So that shouldn't be an issue, right? And I would think that you know, a teacher, I also could see a school that is government funded should not be marketing any religion because that would be government endorsing as one form of religion over another, right? So you can't have teachers with crosses or hijabs or whatever. But a bus driver, like I think a bus driver should be able to wear what, you know, any religious symbols they want. What is like
my understanding is that it's public employees, period, and they don't make distinction because this is how deep the laicite goes. It's like if you are in any role that is, you know, publicly funded, especially publicly facing, you cannot.
But what are you avoiding?
Religious display.
What problem are you solving by not letting a bus driver wear a cross or a hijab? Like, what is the problem that you're avoiding here? Do you know what is the problem that you're avoiding?
I don't think that there is a specific problem so much as this is the principle.
So, I mean, I'm not a principalist.
With a particular emphasis on publicly facing jobs.
So for the people who are saying this infringes on religious rights, do they have any specific examples?
They think that there are certain aspects of this that are incompatible with the ideal of secularism, like how much this can increase control over or infringe upon religious liberties. Like that the fact that the government is putting into place these controls or checks and balances is itself interfering with religion. So they think that there's a hypocrisy or incompatibility there.
I mean, they're kind of right when it comes to the way that, I mean, they are not kind of, they are right when it comes to how France. See, I'm completely in favor of maybe the Quebec model, where, you know what, we just, if you are like a teacher or a policeman, then the government can't pay for advertising certain religious positions, right? But I think in France they have taken it to like Oh yeah, like public areas. You can't, like, if your school is taking children to, I don't know, what, a museum or something, then your mom can't show up if she has a hijab because the other kids might
Well,
see her. Like, this is like, okay,
well,
you guys
well,
are
just
like taking this too far. Yeah, go on.
you're talking about something that was proposed in the French Senate. I don't know.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't believe that has been passed at this point. And I also disagreed with that because that disallowed anyone under the age of 18 to wear the hijab, even in public, which I think is way too far and way too authoritarian.
Yeah, but the fact that that's even suggested, like, it was suggested in France, tells me, like, and there's popular support for it.
A
To me,
lot.
this is like, yeah, to me, it suggests that France is now like moving beyond upholding secularism and actually just, it's going beyond removing religious privilege and seeming to push for actually infringing on people's rights. You know what I mean? Like, you could, like, we have to be careful, just because we are very much in favor of noticing how religion has abiding by different rules than other people because of their religious privilege. And if the government comes and removes those privileges, we are in complete favor of that, and we celebrate that. And whenever people scream, "Oh, our religious rights are being violated," usually we notice that no religious rights have been violated. It's religious privilege that is being taken away, and it just looks to them like religious rights are being taken away. But it's just treating people equally. However, we have to be careful, because if we keep cheering, we have to be careful. Like, maybe there are certain instances where they are moving to the situation where they're going beyond removing religious privilege and actually violating people's rights. So we can't just always assume that every single time that somebody's complaining about their religious rights being violated, every time they're wrong, every single time it's their religious privilege being taken away. We have to, like, evaluate each one of these cases. We can't come up with, like, a general rule. Like, we have to be like, maybe in this case it is a violation of their rights, right? Or rights that they should have that maybe they don't. But yeah, I can't tell what's happened. I can't tell. Okay, it's also fair to maybe note for some people to be skeptical about why we looked at the law, and the law doesn't seem to be violating anyone's rights. The language seems to be really carefully written. It doesn't seem to be targeting any religion over another. However, we're concerned about the way this is going to be executed. Like, that's also a legitimate concern. Even if the law seems to be bulletproof and nobody could highlight anything in the law that is actually a violation of anyone's rights, it's still a reasonable concern to have when people say, like, I want to see how this is going to work out in practice, right? But I honestly can't tell, because we don't have enough legal expertise to be able to dissect this. But I'm just saying, be mindful of not supporting people's rights being violated just because they happen to be religious and you happen to be an atheist, right? Like, stand for people's rights, no matter what. But go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of us have concern about measures that really increase the power and authority of government, just kind of on principle. But there are also a lot of things about this bill that we support, like you're not allowed to do virginity testing. Those who do virginity testing will be criminalized and prosecuted. More controls over homeschooling. So unless there are severe medical circumstances that necessitate otherwise, a lot, there's more issues involved with polygamy, basically, and trying to bring in more people from another country under the guise of marriage and polygamous marriage. And there was something else. There was the homeschooling, the virginity testing. Oh, and religious organizations have to have much more transparency with the government regarding if they have foreign funding, and they may require like accreditation on a certain level when they're receiving foreign funding. And one thing that's a little bit sketchy that I need more information about is about the extent to which the government can shut down organizations that they deem to be extremist, because there is an aspect of the bill that involves that. But I don't know, this is very interesting to me. So I just saw my aunt, who I haven't seen in many years, and she's been living in Paris for over 5 years. And this is a story I've been following for, the past several months, and I wanted to ask her opinion. Because I was like, from the outside, we get all these reports of, this separate society, and it's so isolated, and it's just different, and they don't hold our values, blah, blah, blah. And it's, some people say that there are parts that are, maybe areas that are explicitly dangerous, these like no-go zones, blah, blah, blah. So I was asking her opinion about it and what her experience is. Cause, like with the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle, if you were listening to Fox News, it would seem like it was the whole entire city versus like if I went and it was like, 6 blocks, which itself is really bad, but it gets exaggerated. And her opinion was like, yeah, no, there really is like a felt separation. They self-segregate a lot of immigrants, and they don't recognize the authority of many French, maybe judicial processes. And it creates a huge problem because they're just not becoming integrated. There's an interesting statistic, like something about 46% of immigrants in France are from former French African colonies. And because of what's going on in the Sahel region, this is just going to continue. There's going to be a huge influx of African immigrants because they're from former colonies, so they already speak the language, and so this is a place where they have a lot of opportunity. So a lot of people also say that there's an element of racism with this bill, or possibly the way that it will be applied, because of where people are coming from. And there are some people who say that this is France reckoning with its colonial past, that it's created a really bad situation for a lot of these countries, left a lot of people who are now, the descendants of this colonial past that have few options except to come to France because there's, supposedly more opportunity for them and they're equipped with the language. But they arrive and there is a lot of unemployment. There's a lack of opportunity for these people. And so what happens often in situations, especially among youth who are immigrating, is they find community and support from religious organizations. So it's a very complex problem. Yeah, Armin?
Yeah, so first of all, with regards to a lot of the things that you mentioned from the bill, a lot of them sound fantastic, right? Like they are, like, let's just be honest, like the bill, I mean, we are concerned about government overreach, but a lot of these things in the bill seems like really good ideas, and they're not government overreach. Like, why was this not illegal already, for example, like some of these things that are now they're tackling, right? So, and it's easy to defend this bill because we have a lot of examples in this bill that you could celebrate as a great idea, but it just seems like if there are any misuses of this bill, it's just harder to find, you know what I mean? But we just want to be careful because I don't want to completely endorse something that could, like, there might be something hidden in there that we don't know of that could be used as, as a way to violate people's rights. But overall, it just seems like a good bill, right? Like, and when it comes to fighting segregation, I'm just being careful because I don't want to endorse government overreach, right? But the segregation part, if it's done right, without violating Muslims' rights and all, if they will find a way to solve that, the main people who are going to benefit from that are the Muslims, right? Like this, they are. I've been to Paris and I've been to the Muslim area compared to the rest of the area. I mean, you don't want to live like that. If you could manage to create a way that to make Muslims in France feel more French, more as part of the society, more part of the education that gives them the skills that they need to do their jobs. Like this seems like a bill that is, a lot of people think, like a lot of like idiots, including one guy in our live chat, thinks like, yeah, this is anti-Muslim. I love, and he's a bigot, and he's funny because he thinks like we're hateful, but he's one of the most hateful people I've seen in the live chat. But because they're celebrating, oh yeah, show it to the Muslims. But again, this is, I see this as, if it's done right, in favor of Muslims to become part of France, feel more French. And you mentioned that, you know, a lot of these people feel lack of employment, lack of opportunity. Well, if Muslims in France are felt like actual citizens of this country, not like second-class citizens or people that don't belong here, if they are welcomed into this nation as equals as with everyone else, so much so that these people don't have to rely on this tribal community to feel like a sense of belonging or protection. They could look at their government as a source of that. They could look at other French people as their fellow countrymen and women. Then it's, you know, French people might be upset about, oh, this looks like we're scared about this. It's gonna, you know, a lot of them are scared and like security wise, and that might improve for them, but the number of Muslims' lives that would improve because of the normalization of them among other people and normalizations of others among them, and the more opportunities that will become open to them because the rest of society accepts them and they accept the rest of society, will benefit them in such dramatic ways that I can't see like anybody not seeing this as a pro-Muslim bill. You know what I mean? Like this is, I mean, the intentions behind this, I mean, again, the execution could be wrong. Don't come at me if like all of a sudden these bills are used in a way to violate Muslims' rights. We're like, Armin, you were wrong. I'm being skeptical. I don't know how this is going to be executed. But the motivations, if you look at the language behind the motivations of this, was to protect Muslim women, right? To protect, when we say, like, oh, you can't treat women like this is illegal. What women you think they're talking about? They're not talking about non-Muslim French women. They're talking about like this is a
and young girls who don't have a decision to be brought up in a culture like this. Yeah,
like this is an effort by the government to protect Muslim women from Islamic practices, right? So this is a government taking care of its citizens. Which citizens? The Muslim citizens, like trying to protect them from harm. When the government is coming in and saying like, okay, children need to get these education, you can't just, Muslim parents can't just raise their kids in a bubble and just like brainwash them and not give them the essential skills for them to become, and the communication skills to be able to be a productive member of society and also benefit from society. This is again the French government and coming in and protecting its French children from their parents. Again, these are French Muslim children of Muslim parents being protected by the government from their own parents. So again, this is this bill is a service by the French government to protect the Muslim community from itself and from others. So again, there's a lot of things to celebrate from this bill. However, be skeptical and be mindful, right? You're not dismissing, if you are being like, you know, if you're worried about government overreach and worried about people's rights being violated, that does not mean that you're not dismissing the fact that a lot of the suggestion, a lot of the things in this bill is going to be beneficial. Okay, you could do both. You could be like, yay, but we're watching you, yay, but we're skeptical. We're skeptical. We're happy, but this might be giving the government too much power over here. But overall, pretty good.
Well, it's really interesting because there's also, well, first of all, like there's still steps for this to really come into full effect, but it's also happening in the context of the French elections are coming up, and there are a lot of accusations from more left-wing parties that the centrist President Emmanuel Macron is being pulled to the right because of the far-right politicians like Marine Le Pen, who say that he's not going far enough. So it's really difficult. It's a really difficult situation.
Well, that's another reason why a lot of Muslims in France might not understand that this is saving them. Because if you don't do something about the segregation, then you are popularizing extremely right-wing parties in France. Like, it's in your best interest to let this happen, unless you want this government is not oppressing you. Well, seems like it's not oppressing you, right? Again, we're being skeptical. However, if you don't let these fixes go through, you will get a government that is extremely oppressive against you, right? So this bill is within the interest of the Muslim population in France in so many different ways, especially future generations, right? Like, if this is like, I want Muslims in France to feel, as French as Muslims in Canada feel like they're Canadian, right? And they don't as much. I mean, I'm not generalizing everybody, but I'm just talking
a better example would be America.
No, better example would be Canada. Come at me. Just like,
aren't there studies that the Muslim population in America is better assimilated and integrated into society than in Canada?
It was a joke, Suze, given that you're American and I'm Canadian.
Oh.
It was like,
whoops.
Like, yeah, it's better in America. I was like, no. All right.
Me, USA.
All right.
But yes, we'll be seeing how this evolves over the next few months, because there's still a bunch of steps for this to really go through the parliament and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Hey, I get to say I told you so in either case. If it turns out everything was good, I was like, I told you it was a good bill. And if it ends up like actually violating Muslims' right, I'm like, I told you need to be skeptical. Either way, I was right.
Yeah, but I mean, I also wanted to cover this because we promised our community that we would be, following this closely, because it's important to us to defend Enlightenment values and also call out when people are actually violating Enlightenment values when they say that they're supposedly defending them. So,
yeah, people seem to think you will.
Hey guys, if you're a fan of Blasphemy and Sexy Callie, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our Blasphemous Art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe, link in the description below.